or plot plans including all dimensions, pictures, or any other supporting information at this meeting. Only information presented at this meeting may be used in any future hearings regarding this petition. Any person affected by the board's decision may file an appeal with the Superior Court of Richmond County, Georgia, within 30 days of the decision of the board. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the board's bylaws and rules of procedure and the latest edition of Robert's Rules of Order, unless otherwise directed by the majority of the board in session at the time. A minimum of 10 minutes shall be afforded for the presentation of data, evidence, and opinions on each side of a petition. If more than 10 minutes is afforded to one side, then an equal amount of time shall be afforded to the other side. The board encourages participation in this hearing, and there is no restriction on who may address the board within the allotted time. But the board asks that public comments be brief, on subject, and directed to the board, not to any individual or group. BZA-24-28.
All right, Kevin Boyd, Development Services Manager. Let's get the PowerPoint going. And so this case involves a 0.4 acre tract located at 3078 Westwood Road. This property is currently zoned R1 and situated in the Dorchester subdivision. According to Augusta Richmond County Tax Assessor's records, the 2,734 square foot residence was constructed back in 1976. The applicants seek approval of two variances to legitimize previous construction of a garage home addition and a partially constructed detached pool house. And you can see here the requirements of 10 feet minimum on each side, the request for a 0-foot effective setback along the pool house location, and the addition 5 feet on the western side of the property. And these are both referenced from section 8-8B of the comprehensive zoning ordinance. These are maps of the property. Looking at the aerial on the left, and the property is situated in the R1 zone as stated. Sign. This is what has been constructed of the pool area. Staff was unable to uncover active permit for the construction. As you can see from the storm damage, tree looks to have made some have fallen basically on portions of that construction. And this is the site plan that was given, provided to staff. As you can see, the pool house is right along the property line. And then on the opposite side there is the 5-foot distance where a minimum of 10 feet is required on each side. The lot has a 75-foot frontage along Westwood, but measures approximately 150 feet at its widest point towards the rear of the property. Section 8-8B of the comprehensive zoning ordinance requires a minimum 10-foot side setback for lot widths measuring over 70 feet in the R1 zone. Applicants proposed to construct a detached pool house on the east side property line, which does not comply with section R302, that .1 of the International Residential Code. The table shows that walls without fire resistance and projections must be measured at least 5 feet from the property line. No active permits exist for construction of the garage home addition and partially constructed 902 square foot pool house, and at the completion of this report, no increase were received by staff concerning this variance application. That concludes staff's presentation.
All right, thanks, Kevin. At this time, could we please have Dirk and Paula Meyer? Please, if you would please come to the podium. When you get to the podium, you've heard staff give some briefings concerning your variance request. Please state your name and your address, and then, of course, you can present to the board whatever information you would like to share.
Thank you. My name is Paula Meyer, and my current address is 1214 Peachtree Road in Augusta, but the home that we are completing is at 3078 Westwood Road. Like he mentioned, these are both two pre-existing items. We purchased the home in June, and the home had been under construction when we purchased it, so there's sort of the partial pool house cement. It's essentially just a block unfinished cement wall at this point. The neighbor, we have great relationships with the neighbor on that side, who has also put up her own sort of, you can kind of see it in this one, a white paneling fence on her side, which is the same height as the cement block wall. So we've discussed with her. She is fine with this. She has her own fence, and then we're just going to be really cognizant that the roof line is very minimal so that it doesn't really impede her view. So that would be finishing up that. And then, as you can see, like he mentioned on that side, they built I think the garage wall basically on that line. We own the empty lot next to it. And so when we were given options, they said you could either sort of try to combine both parcels, because we have no intentions on building on that empty parcel. On the garage side, it's just going to be a yard for our kids. So they said that this would probably be the logical way to go, just do two variances instead of trying to just combine it into one big parcel lot. We love the house. Neighborhood's great. The city has been great to work with, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any objectors in the audience? All right, can we have staff recommendation?
Good afternoon. The Planning and Development staff is recommending denial of the variance request because it does not meet all of the criteria as established in Section 35-5 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance of Augusta, Georgia, as amended. This concludes staff's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? Board Member Brigham, please.
Ms. Myers, I believe that you combine the two lots, one of these variances, I'm sorry, I'm not used to this. You want me to start over?
Sure.
Ms. Myers, I believe if you combine the two lots, one of these variances is not needed.
Board Member Rowe, could you please turn your mic off until it's time to speak? Okay, Mr. Brigham.
Can you hear? Am I being recorded? Okay. And you said you chose to go for the variance rather than combining the lots?
Yeah, they said that, I think when we looked at sort of cost, we had already done the first application.
Definitely wouldn't be needed if they were combined, because you would own that entire side.
Right. I mean, we already do own both
Yeah.
pieces, so I think
Okay.
they said that either one was a legitimate way to go for both of
Okay.
those. And just in comment, I know that they are recommending denial of that. The wall that is built for the pool house, that would be incredibly, incredibly cost prohibitive to finishing the property. The city has been very great in helping us sort of figure out our remediation and everything that the prior owner did not do with the permit. So we're here partially on their recommendation and guidance, so I'm not sure how we would move a concrete wall other than bringing in a giant bulldozer and moving it to you can't really relocate it into that backyard
So the
portion.
previous owner constructed the concrete wall is what you're telling me. Okay.
All right, Board Member Shivers, please turn on your mics, board members.
It's hard to get them to stay on. I was helping Mr. Rose, so I'm gonna have to hold it. So
It's not working, so just go ahead then.
I have a question for staff, which, if she wants to combine both lots, would she have to do a variance to do that? Or would that be an issue here?
No, it would be as straightforward as a land hook on a existing survey, and this kind of activity could also be done in deed only if they were worried about costs associated with surveying both parcels. So there are two options and avenues that are relatively quick that would allow for the combination of these lots.
Okay, and in reference to the other one, variance she's wanting for the wall, is there any recommendation you all can give so we could possibly remedy this situation?
In this particular case, the pool house is the real challenge. There are some things that we have concerns about. If you look at number 3 on the findings, the applicant, that's on page 3, the applicant's proposed construction of a detached pool house on the east side of the property line, which it doesn't comply with the residential code. So we wouldn't want to be in a position where we're granting variances to the residential code. First of all, we're not allowed to. That's beyond the purview, so we wouldn't recommend that. And so that's pretty much where we stand. And the table shows that the walls without fire resistance and projections must be constructed at least 5 feet from the property line. So with that being said, we understand it's a unique position that she finds herself in, but finding out whether or not the residential code would allow for it would be the optimal concern at this point.
Any other questions or comment by board members?
Can I add just one more thing?
Go ahead.
The wall that we're talking about too also already has built-in concrete sections for the pool equipment, an outdoor restroom and an outdoor shower. So if for some reason that is denied, basically the entire back section that's already existing, all the piping, all the concrete, everything would have to go away. And the way that the outside is sort of laid out in the back, where the pool is and where the porch is, it basically goes from the top with the pool and the pool house and then drops down to a completely separate level. So there is no other location to put any of those things. And it would be tens and tens of thousands of dollars to do that. We have the support of the neighbor. We had the support of all the city officials that came out and helped us figure out what electrical things, everything else we have to fix about the property. So I understand that it might not meet that code section, but this is sort of why we're here, is to see if a variance is possible to let us move forward and finish it.
Okay, I think staff is getting ready to say something. Then I think Board Member Mooney has a comment.
At this point, for this particular application, I would strongly recommend against making a motion to approve with the assumption that they would be exempt or receive a variance from the residential code. What I would recommend is that potentially, if the applicant is willing and the chairwoman agrees and the rest of the commission, is a potential postponement so that we can evaluate it to see if there is a workaround for the residential code, because this body cannot give you a variance to the residential code. So that would be my recommendation, to let's set up an appointment for later on this week, possibly on Thursday, to look at the pool, the layout, and see if we can come up with an alternative. Because I couldn't support or recommend a variance to the code, the residential building code.
That's understandable. This is where we were recommended to go and do, so this is what we're
Okay,
doing.
so Ms. Meyer, do you agree with what staff, just the suggestion by the staff?
I'm happy to meet with whoever, talk about whatever needs to be done. We are anxious to get the home finished. This is where we.
Okay, so you are willing to postpone until you all can meet and discuss and then come back to
Well, it
us?
depends on how, if we agree to postpone and meet, does that then mean that potentially we're looking at
Ms.
months of
Meyer, we're
delays?
trying to give you a way out
I
instead
know.
of this just being
I'm just not
denied.
sure
Okay,
why we
so-
recommended
So
to
we're trying
apply.
to cooperate and
Okay.
collaborate here to try to
Okay.
work with you and come to some
Okay.
type of agreement. So that's why we're asking, would you agree to a postponement? Because we don't
Sure.
want the board to just deny it if you all can come together and work together to see concerning the code.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can I ask staff, are we able to vote on one variance versus another? Because I think it would be perhaps in our best interest to go ahead and approve the setback for the garage, as that's a significant project. She owns the property next to it. I feel comfortable making a motion to approve that variance and then postpone the secondary variance until the next meeting, so that way they have some time to discuss alternatives. Is that a possibility, staff?
I would be comfortable with splitting them and the west side property line potential reduction. I understand if you all would like to pursue that. They still don't meet the minimum criteria, but there is understanding as to the conditions and why they need it. So, yes, I
In
would
that case, I
recommend.
would like to make a motion to approve the variance for the setback with the garage property.
Okay, if motion was made in the second, Board Member Forrest, I think, has a question.
Well, just so that I can understand, since they're going to be, what they're planning to postpone, this, what you're looking to approve is not going to affect anyway, because you're saying that you're looking to come up with something, right? To be able to approve the other variance?
I think
This
Board,
portion is not going to affect that in any way.
I couldn't hear the tail end of what you said.
So the second variance, since you're going to be trying to look at a way to approve what she's wanting to have approved, because you're going to be trying to seek a way to get it approved, this particular variance that we're making a motion to have approved is not going to affect that.
In this case, no.
Okay.
But I will say from a project management standpoint, having both approvals allows the contractor to move forward. If this other one doesn't get approved, it could affect placement potentially of on the other side, which means if they, for instance, we can't get around that residential code and they have to move it to the other side and it, then you still might have the issue of coming far enough off the property line, moving their property line since they own that other parcel too. So it doesn't really bring enough resolution probably for the applicant, for the contractor to comfortably move forward with regards to the pool and the wall. But, there's no stop work order. They can still do what they need to do on the principal structure itself. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
And just so you all know, anytime a person meets with us, we give them options, and variances are not promised. No outcomes are guaranteed or anything like that. It's always a possibility that it won't get approved, but they still choose to come down this road.
okay, I think Board Member Brigham, I think Shivers has a comment. Okay, Board Member Brigham.
My logic is the garage doesn't matter because the motion, if the variance is becoming a problem, they can always combine the two lots. They already own both of them. It's kind of like what happened in a previous case in a different matter. I don't see why we cannot approve the garage and let them go on with that work, even though we may have problems with the placement. I think that's where the motion comes from.
Yeah, if I could respond to that, Madam Chair, if that's all right.
Go ahead, Board Member Mooney.
Yeah, I think the intent of my motion was to approve the variance for the 5 feet versus the 10 feet setback to allow the work to be completed for the garage, because that's on a portion of the property that's most adjacent to her secondary lot. As we've talked about now, there are significant concerns about the 0 setback, as that's adjacent to a property she doesn't own, and it does interfere with the code for residential property, right? Is what we're talking about. So I would like to give the applicant a little bit more time to maybe come up with a resolution for the 0 setback versus the 5-foot setback on the garage. And that was the intent of my motion, is to move forward with the garage portion.
Okay, so it has been motion and second. Does Mr. Mooney need to make his motion again, or do we have any other comments by staff?
For clarification's sake, the motion on the floor is to postpone the east side reduction in setback and to approve the west side reduction in setback. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, it has been motion and second. All in favor, please. You want to do a roll call vote, Amber, or let them say? All in favor? Any? Okay, one against.
No.
Two. All right, you have the count, Amber? All right, you have your variance for the garage setback, and so do we also have to do a motion to postpone?
Motion to postpone the second portion to next month.
Okay, it has been motion and second to postpone the other variance requests until next month. All in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Have a great one.
All right, item number 2 on your agenda is BZA 24-29, and it is a petition by Locke McKnight requesting a variance from Section 8-8 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to reduce the required south side setback from the required 10 feet to 7.5 feet in order to construct a lap pool on the property located at 3007 Pine Needle Road. This is on page 15 in your packet. Staff will present.
Again, Kevin Boyd, Development Services Manager. This variance request involves approximately 0.76 acre tract located at 3007 Pine Needle Road. The property is almost entirely zoned B2, or B1 rather, neighborhood business and situated in the Forest Hill subdivision. It sits immediately adjacent to the Daniel Village Shopping Center. Applicant seeks a variance to reduce the south side setback from the required 10 feet to 7.5 feet to install an in-ground lap pool hot tub on the property. And as you can see, the requirements for setbacks in relation to the side setback is a minimum 10-foot minimum requirement. 7.5 is the requested distance. The property is zone B1, but primary structure is a converted bank into a residence, and so the residential standards hold for this property, and is referenced from Section 8-8B of the ordinance. Although the property, as stated, although the property is commercially zoned, it contains a former bank, and so it adheres to the standards of 8-8 of the ordinance. Property fronts Pine Needle Road and is accessible in the rear via a private driveway. Based on the conceptual plan, the applicant proposes to, let me see if I can pull it up. Yep. Construct a 40 by 10 in-ground lap pool and a 7x7.5 hot tub near the south side property line. According to Section 8-4A and 8-8B of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, there shall be a minimum 10-foot side setback for accessory structures in the R1 zones, including pools. For pools, the setback is generally measured from the water's edge. On June 21st, 2023, the Zoning Board of Appeals approved a variance to reduce the rear setback from 35 feet to 12 feet with the following conditions. The variance request is approved for a rear setback not less than 12 feet. Any future buildings must comply with all building codes and zoning ordinances plus all applicable Augusta-Richland County codes. The property borders a branch bank to the south in the R1 zone and B1 zones. Properties are zone B2 immediately to the east, and R1 and B1 to the north, and R1 to the west. Pine Needle Road serves as a dividing line between commercial and residential zoning. At the time of completion of this report, no inquiries were received by staff concerning this application. That concludes staff's presentation.
All right, thanks, Kevin. At this time, could we please have G. Locke McKnight? Please state your name and address, and you've heard staff give us a summary concerning your variance request, and at this time, you can share whatever you would like with the board.
Thank you. My name's George Locke McKnight. I reside in 3007 Pine Needle, Augusta, Georgia. Appreciate y'all's time and consideration. One thing that Kevin did not mention was we did try to put a pool on the north side of the structure, and it was unknown to us that there was a utility easement. Really wasn't a utility easement. We found out that the bank building behind us was tied into a manhole that was on our property at the time. And we brought out the utility department, and they determined that we were unable to put a pool there unless we could all agree to relocate that manhole, which we weren't able to do at that time. So we agreed to not put a pool there. And now my wife's saying, well, let's try this. So that's where we're at. So we've had to move it to the south side. The front of the building's not really a good place to put a pool or desirable. And there was no room in the rear. So this was the only place we could find that we might be able to put a pool in. So that's it.
All right, we're going to ask you to please stay in place, Mr. McKnight, in case the board have any questions. Do we have any objectors to this variance request at this time in the audience? Okay, no objectors. Can we get staff's recommendation?
The Planning and Development staff is recommending denial of the variance as it does not meet the criteria established by Section 35-5C of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance of Augusta, Georgia as amended. This concludes staff's recommendation.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments by board members at this time? Board Member Mooney.
I don't really have any questions for the applicant. I'd just like to say to this board, I think they tried to put it on the north. Best place to put it now is on the south. If you look at the property, they've done a really good job. So I think it's going to be a pretty good project. I understand the recommendation to deny, but this is a unique property, kind of outlies normal stuff for me. So I'd make a motion to approve.
Board Member Brigham.
Okay, somebody's got to cut off something. Come on. Still. There you go. There we go. I'll make a second to Mr. Mooney's motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve variance request BZA-24-29. All in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Any disapprove or oppose?
Oppose.
To oppose. All right, you have your variance request. Thanks, and your letter will go in the mail to you this week.
Thank you all for your
Thanks,
time.
have a great one.
All right. Item number 4 on the agenda, BZA 24-30, is a petition by Joseph Dustin Tracy requesting a variance from Section 8-8A of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance in order to reduce the front setback on Berkeley Road from the required 30 feet to 10 feet in order to construct a 720 square foot garage on the property located at 2216 Montclair Street. Staff will present. It's on page 25.
Hi, Rachel Martin, Planning Projects Coordinator. This variance request involves approximately 0.42 acres located at 2216 Montclair Street. The property is currently zoned R1A and situated in the Red Heights neighborhood. The applicant seeks a variance to reduce the front setback on Berkeley Road from the required 30 feet to 10 feet to install a new garage on the property. The property is a double frontage lot with required front setbacks on both Montclair Street and Berkeley Road. The lot is approximately 80 foot wide and 200 foot deep, which is the average lot size of the existing properties zoned R1A in the Red Heights neighborhood. Section 8-8A of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance allows for a 30-foot minimum front setback from any structure in an R1 zone on minor or local streets. The purpose for reducing the front setback along Berkeley Road from 30 feet to 10 feet is to allow for construction of a new 720 square feet or 30 by 24 garage that measures 15 feet in height. The proposal is not consistent with aspects of the 2023 comprehensive plan. At the time of completion of this report, no inquiries were received by staff concerning this variance application. And that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Rachel. At this time, could we please have Joseph Dustin Tracy please come to the microphone? Please state your name and your address, and you can, of course, share with the board anything you would like to share.
Thank you. My name is Joseph Dustin Tracy. I live at 22116 Montclair Street. I'm in request. I just feel everything that's been said is true, that it is a double-fronted property, and that, but if, I actually understood the front setback to be 25 feet when I was talking, when I filed the request, but if it's 30 feet, that's even more. That once you take 10 feet off of the side and 30 feet off the front of an 80-foot lot, the places that I can build on are really, really narrow. And so that I'm asking that this is functionally the side of the property. I mean, yes, it is a street, but I'm asking that I be allowed to use, at least for the purposes of this garage, the side variance allotment of 10 feet. I also note that there are numerous other garages in the neighborhood do not comply with setbacks. I mean, my neighbor immediately downhill, I mean, is set back maybe 2 feet from my property. Her garage is set back 2 feet, so that it would have the lot would have a much nicer layout in the garage and be a much more usable lot. Where the existing garage is in an awkward position. It's set more or less centered in the yard, and the previous owner, I've owned the property for a little bit less than 3 years, and the space beyond it was this kind of no man's land that became a jungle that I've tried to tame. So want to try to reposition the new garage in a place that makes all of the yard usable.
All right, thanks, Mr. Tracy. Do we have any objectors in the audience for this variance request? Could we please have staff's recommendation?
All right. The Planning and Development staff is recommending denial of the application as presented because it does not meet all of the criteria established in Section 33 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. However, should the board move to approve the applicant's request, staff recommends the following conditions. Number one, that a variance is approved to reduce the front setback on Berkeley Road from the required 30 feet in order to install a new 30 by 24-foot garage on the property, with the condition that the newly installed garage will not protrude past the principal structure. So as you see on the screen right here where it's proposed, we would like to see that come back so it doesn't project past the front, that side plane on Berkeley Street. Kind of, we're looking at from an alignment standpoint. You understand what I'm saying?
The principal structure being the house?
Mm-hmm.
Is that not 30 feet setback?
Somewhat, yes.
Okay.
They can accomplish, it just, okay. All right, so that's 30 feet, but could they nudge it back a little bit? Do you know what I'm saying? To make it not project 20 feet out further than the house. I think there's some room, but nonetheless, I digress. Number one, variance for reduce the front setback on Berkeley Street from the required 30 feet. I would like to see some improvement on that 10 feet, but to 10 feet. And then number two, the applicant acknowledges that Section 8-4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, which outlines the following, that accessory buildings shall not be designated or used for residential purposes. They shall not contain sleeping or cooking facilities. Accessory buildings may not be used to conduct home occupations or serve as a home office, and in no case may an accessory building have a separate electrical service. And that concludes staff's recommendation.
Okay, Board Member Turner?
Madam Chair, I have actually a couple questions. Okay. One for the staff. I'm curious, we're looking at 720 square feet of accessory structure. Is that does that meet the current zoning, or is that in excess of the existing zoning on accessory structure space?
Given the size of the lot and the structure, it does meet the minimum criteria, our maximum criteria in this case.
Thank you. Second question is for the petitioner. Sir, your current garage, it has power, is that correct? And you intend to maintain that?
Yes.
Does it have a separate meter, or is it just
No, it
wired
does
to the
not have a
house?
separate meter.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a question or comment?
Yes, go ahead.
So the existing one that's shown, this gray building right here with the rooftop immediately adjacent to the proposed building, that one is too dilapidated for, it's beyond repair. So when I say I would like to see it shift back, if they're roughly the same size, why couldn't it move back? That's pretty much, because you can see, visually, you can see from that bird's eye view that there's enough space for that to be accomplished.
Can we have the petitioner to answer?
Certainly, I'm happy to answer. I mean, this goes to my point before where, like, if I move it back, there is this weird, awkward, spot that's 20 in the back right corner away from both of the streets. I just find that that space is going to be, probably unusable.
Can you say unusable?
What
Now,
am I
that
going to,
kinda-
I mean, I just
different.
feel like it's going to be an awkward, just an awkward, very small space, and that's what I was hoping to avoid, but.
Okay, you're saying moving it in alignment with where the structure, the current structure is, that's dilapidated?
Yes.
You're saying if you move it in alignment with that would,
Like I said before, I mean, that the space on the opposite side of the garage from the house was basically unused, or like the garage created a barrier, and I and the previous owners did not go over there and did not use that space. So I'm saying if I move the garage back 30 feet, and so now I have this 20 but only 20 feet from the fence edge, and that to me feels like a really narrow, awkward space that, I'm not going to plant, I'm not sure how I'm going to use that space. I mean, yes, I could physically walk into it, but in terms of like landscaping the rest of the yard, that it creates an awkward space to me. That's.
okay, staff, and then Mr. Brigham, we'll come to you.
Just for a better understanding, if the structure that's currently there is dilapidated, is the intent to demolish it?
Yes.
Okay, so once you demolish it, why wouldn't you be in a position to move, instead of moving it, shifting it over, what is this, 10, 20 feet? Why wouldn't you go back in that same footprint, so to speak?
I was planning to build the other one and then demolish it, and because right now, my lawnmower, my wheelbarrow, all my yard tools are in it, and rather than trying to I was just planning to build it in the new one and then transfer all the stuff and then demolish it.
Okay, so now I'm confused. Now, so the current structure that we see here is usable. You are currently using the garage now.
It is, yes.
You're saying it's dilapidated, but it's usable. You're using it.
I am using it.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Board Member Brigham, then I think Board Member Shivers has something.
Can I actually?
Hold one moment. Let's go to the board members, Brigham and then Shivers, and then we'll come back to you if you don't mind, okay?
He may answer my question I'll let him, if you mind, let him speak.
All right, Board Member Brigham.
To clarify, as my neighbor is saying, the building, I do have things stored in it, but there are boards that are falling off, there are boards that are rotten, it is just beyond repair, and it certainly is not pretty. So, and I mean, then the garage door that is there is not functional because there is not adequate clearance for it to go up. So it is not, I mean, so that's why I mean, it is, I have stuff in it, but it is not usable. I cannot put my car in it. And.
Okay, thanks. We're gonna go to, you good? Brigham, okay, we're going to Board Member Brigham, then Shivers.
Okay. let me understand. I'm gonna lay it out as I understand it. Okay? If we approve this, you're going to take the existing garage down at some point. Okay, and from what I understand, the director asking is, would you just shift the front of the building back and kind of square it up between the two property lines so that it doesn't have a plane where it juts out close to the street, where you bring in the garage closer to the street than the front of the house. And maybe we can hit a happy medium somewhere in there between that 10 and 30 feet to make this case resolvable. Is that something you're agreeable to?
Yes, I'm agreeable to that, to some sort of compromise.
Okay, so you're willing to bring the front of that building back towards the back property line? The proposed building back, okay. I'm just trying to make.
Okay,
Have we got the facts kind of straight? Can we get a motion?
hold on, Mr. Brigham. I want to make sure he answer instead of nine, since we're
Yes,
recording.
ma'am,
So
I
I want to give the petitioner a chance to.
I thought yes, I am amenable to some compromise, somewhere, some number between 10 and 30.
Okay,
I
can
mean-
we get this, do we need to put it in a motion for the staff to?
There's a few more questions still.
Okay,
Okay, we have a few more questions, and then I want to also make sure that whenever you all make this motion, that we take into the consideration that this current structure needs to be removed in a certain amount of time. I just want to make sure, so we got to go to Board Member Shivers, then Board Member Mooney, then I think Board Member Forrest, and I think Board Member Turner. Okay, Turner's good, okay. So we'll go in that order, Shivers, Mooney, and Forrest.
Okay, I think he answered my question through Mr. Brigham. So when he said he was going to remove the one that's dilapidated. So, but you'll do it, possibly after you construct the other one. Is that what you're saying? So you're not gonna do it immediately, but it will be done after you construct the other one.
Correct.
Correct, okay. That's what I need to know.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is actually for staff as it relates to the two accessory buildings. If and when this applicant builds the new building, will that exceed the minimum lot coverage with the existing?
I believe so.
So I want to make sure that the applicant is aware that because you're building a new building, I understand your timelines for construction and the necessity to keep things stored. However, you're going to be over the limit for your lot coverage with those two structures, which typically would require another variance. Now, we might up here agree to give you some time to take down the dilapidated shed, but I want to make sure you know that that is going to be a primary concern if we move forward. Are you aware?
I hear that it has not been brought to my attention before this moment.
Sure. That's why I'm bringing it to your attention now, mainly because what you're asking for is a variance for the setbacks. And typically, as staff has said, there's not really any extraordinary or exceptional cause that would necessitate this variance, especially with the house already being so far back from the street. The reason that these variances are what they are is because we're trying to put precedents for what the neighborhood looks like and how it's maintained. And while there might be exceptions already, that's what this board is here to kind of maintain. So I'm asking that because if we do move forward with an approval, we'll need to have a caveat for a time limit on when the secondary structure, the structure that you are replacing, when it comes down. That was all my questioning.
All right, thanks, Board Member Mooney. I think, Board Member Forrest, you have anything?
Yeah, I just want to say, because earlier you mentioned about not having, on the setback, not having much room to do anything with, when you mentioned about landscaping and things of that nature. So you are now saying that you don't have a problem with moving it back, even though you won't have much space in between, as you mentioned, only to walk through. Because based on the question that Mr. Brigham had asked.
if that space in the back corner, I mean, the bottom of this picture, is big. The bigger that space is, from my perspective, the more usable and the more inviting that I can plant stuff there. So that's why I'm saying yes, it's a compromise. Even if that space could get a little bit bigger, rather than being, if it's an 80-foot lot and it's a 30-foot deep garage, that I'm left with a 20-foot, that's essentially an alley, between the back of the garage and the fence. And that's what I'm trying to avoid, is having this little alley kind of thing.
Yeah, that was my only question, because what Mr. Brigham asked, and you said that you would have no problem with setting it back.
Okay, we have Board Member Turner, Shivers, and then Mooney again.
Questions for staff, Madam Chair. Can we get confirmation on the rear setback for R1A on this property? What that distance is?
Give me just a second here. On the rear setback in R1A,
Yes, ma'am, because part of the discussion
it's
is,
20% of the lot depth, but such yard need not exceed 50 feet on a rear setback.
so 20%.
So it's 20% of the lot depth. But I want to say this, if you'll allow. This is a double frontage lot. So, it's not unique because there's corners everywhere, so that doesn't make it unique. So there are certain things, which is why we gave a couple options of how we could approve it. I think the real portion that gives us discomfort is, if you look, it's a proposed tough shed, and so you're going to have potentially a barn-style red metal building in a residential neighborhood that's going to protrude out further than the houses. And now, when your line of sight, where you're used to seeing houses, you're in predominantly brick houses over here, now you're going to have a dominant shed. Even if you change the color, it becomes the prominent thing on the parcel. So we understand that it's a unique situation, not that unique, but it is a situation. But we would like for him to give a little bit more consideration to not making that a more dominant visual on the parcel, essentially.
I think for me, this, with your permission, this is a bit of a math problem. Now, the lot is 80 feet deep. We're talking about a number on the front. The petitioner is talking about a narrow space. I'm just trying to put some minimum distance on the narrow space, because I believe the petitioners will worry about squeezing in, but it sounds like the rear setback here will exceed 15 feet. Is that correct? Like the structure cannot move closer than 15 or 16 feet to the rear line without needing another variance. So it's not such a tight space in the back. I'm trying to get to his concern on that.
Okay, I think Kevin.
Yeah, so it's a accessory building, so the minimum setback is going to be 10 feet on the side and the rear. It's not treated the same as the primary structure.
Okay, but this still is going to give him really 50 feet or so to work with on placement, correct? Mm-hmm. In terms of, okay.
Okay, I think it was Board Member Shivers and then Board Member Mooney.
Question for the applicant. You are definitely willing to set it back, even if you set it back, say, to where the existing dilapidated building is?
I would prefer it be forward of that. I mean, that I don't need a variance to put it in aligned with the existing building. Is my understanding that is set back, but yes, I'm some smaller distance between 10 and 30 feet, or my understanding was it was 25 feet.
Okay, so Commissioner Turner asked for the rear setback. I gave him the rear setback, but that's not, as Kevin clarified, that's accessory. There's one that's accessory, and I gave the one for the building. Okay, so now you wanted clarification on?
On if he's setting back the proposed accessory building to be aligned with the existing dilapidated building. That's all about it.
Yeah, that would be essentially, which is why we recommend denial of the application, he wouldn't need the variance. Unless it's, like you said, 25 feet and it's supposed to be 30, he would be asking for a 5-foot variance on the front setback instead of the 20 that he's requesting. So, putting it back would be in essence denying the variance because there is enough lot depth to accomplish what he's asking for.
What about the rear wall?
Rear wall, which rear wall are we talking about? This accessory structure can be 10 feet off the wall, off the property line. There's 80 feet of depth. So there's, roughly 70 feet to play with. You could decide to move it back and still you would have, it's a 24 by 30, so you still got 50 feet you can work with. You could orient it differently. You've got a couple of options, so.
Is there any way we could meet back with you all to come up with an option? Because since you said there's some possibilities.
One of the things.
Go ahead, Sam.
Before we take an application, we counsel people and we say, if this is really, really what you want, then this is the avenue. So he's aware of the options of potentially reorienting it, of potentially demolishing and rebuilding. He's already made the applicant's already made the decision that he would like to try his hand this way so that he can demolish in his time frame, and so that he can have the building positioned where he wants it on the lot. I don't think sending it back to staff is going to accomplish anything different. He's aware of those options.
I beg to differ. I was not offered any other options. I don't know if something different happened, if that's normal protocol, but I do not recall any conversations in which anybody offered any different options.
The option would be to comply.
Mm-hmm.
That was the option, to comply with the existing ordinance. So, compliance could be reorienting the building, compliance, but there are options other than a variance.
Madam Chair.
Can I also clarify that it is a wooden structure and not metal, and would be clapboard similar to some of the rest of the neighborhood. It would not be brick.
Okay. Mooney, hold one moment, because Mr. Brigham was trying to get in also. Does he agree?
This is going a long way already.
It is, because he agreed in that.
Right, and what I heard earlier was you were agreeable to do something to adjust the front setback. I'm assuming, and maybe I shouldn't, that this new accessory building is larger than the current garage.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. It looks to me like if you orient the rear property, the rear of the building, this new accessory building with the old accessory building, I'm looking at a picture and it would be hard to guess, but I'm thinking it's probably somewhere between 10 and 15 foot. You're going to move that building backwards. And I think that's what the director was asking for originally, so that we would have more than 10 foot on the roadside. And Kevin, have we got any numbers as the sizes of these things? Or
The existing building is about 20 by 20.
and the new one is?
The new proposed one is 24 by 30. It's there.
Okay, so we're going to gain at least 5 feet if we move it back 5 feet. Am I right or am I wrong?
I think you're correct. I'm not exactly sure about what your question is, but
What I'm focusing on is if you take red diagram and move it to my right, back toward the back property line, I'm believing you gained some footage in the front. And I'm thinking it's at least 5 feet. And that brings it to 15 feet, which is not really that much. And it's, we still are compromising down from 30 feet to 15 feet if we was to approve something like that. And I'm trying to figure out, when you said you were agreeable, how much you're agreeable to.
I 15 feet would be agreeable.
Okay, I'm gonna leave it to somebody else to answer the question.
Yeah,
Okay, Board Member Moody.
so certainly we've discussed this at great length, and I appreciate your application. Don't ask, don't get. However, I think when we're looking at this, we are kind of playing a little bit of game of math here. Perhaps we could maybe come to a compromise with what we see as the existing structure. That structure is already grandfathered in with its proximity to Berkeley, okay? Maybe this, I would like to maybe make a motion as a compromise that we say that you can build this no closer to Berkeley than the existing structure that's already kind of grandfathered in length. Because we can sit here and talk about feet, 15, 20, 30, we could do that all day long. Technically, right now, you got plenty of space really to place this without needing a variance. So the compromise maybe out of this board would be that we place it so that it is no closer to Berkeley Street than the existing structure. Would my fellow board members agree to that? Okay, so I would make a motion.
Applicant's agreeable.
Well,
I mean, that's essentially
at this point, I
denying
think
any
that's what he's going to
variance.
get, or denial. So-
I mean, I think that the existing structure is 30 feet back from, so I feel like I've gained nothing.
Well, on the off chance that it's 29 feet, you've gained 1 feet. So we could deny it, or we can maybe move forward with that. That would be my motion, is that it would go no further than the accessory structure that exists.
Also, I guess we need to, if a motion is made, staff, that we need to make sure we address that current garage that's present.
If that is the recommendation, what we will do is we will go out, we will measure it with the applicant to verify and make that official part of the record.
And then for that structure to be taken down? Or it doesn't have to be?
We will look at we'll recalculate and see what the maximum is. If they're over the maximum allowed for accessory structures, we'd also measure the existing accessory structure and determine that. So we would do both in this case.
So I would make a motion that would be in accordance with what they just stated. Yes.
Yeah, let her redo the motion.
So just for clarification's sake, I want to make sure we get the motion right. There's a motion on the floor to approve the reduction in setback to allow for the newly proposed building to be at the same front setback on Berkeley Street as determined by staff with a site visit.
The same as the existing structure.
Okay, we have a motion and a second here.
Madam Chair, I think something else needs to be put in that motion. I think that we need to give him 90 days to take down the existing structure since it's dilapidated after the completion of construction.
If it exceeds the lot
If it
value.
exceeds the
The coverage.
Can we do that, staff?
Are y'all wanting to amend the motion to say upon completion of the newly proposed, if it exceeds the maximum coverage, then it needs to be reduced? Okay.
Okay, could you please clarify the motion again, please?
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to approve the variance from the front setback on the Berkeley Street as it pertains to the newly proposed accessory structure. The proposed accessory structure shall not exceed the front plane of the existing accessory structure. In the event the calculation for the existing and the proposed accessory structures exceeds the zoning ordinance, then the applicant will have 90 days to remove the existing accessory structure. Is that what the variance is saying?
Okay.
Yes.
Board Member Mooney, do you agree with that clarification?
Yes, very
All right.
eloquent, thank you.
All right. She seconded. All right. All in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Mooney made the motion and she seconded. Williams seconded. Mr. Brigham, no. All right, you have the approval. All right, thanks. And staff will get with you and come out to look at everything. All right, thanks, sir. Have a great one.
Okey dokey. Next up on the agenda, on page 33, is BCA 24-33, and it is a petition by Southern State Builders on behalf of Kenji Smalls requesting a variance from Section 8-8 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance to reduce the south side setback from the required 10 feet to 6 feet in order to construct a carport located at property on 510 Millage Road. Staff will present.
Rachel Martin, again, Planning Projects Coordinator. This variance request involves approximately 0.4 acres located at 510 Millage Road. The property is currently zoned R1 and situated in the Walton Way Millage neighborhood. The applicant seeks a variance to reduce the south side setback from the required 10 feet to 6 feet to allow for the construction of a carport and shifting of the current driveway to allow for drivers to safely turn around within the property and exit onto Millage Road facing oncoming traffic instead of having to back out onto the roadway. The lot is, the lot is approximately 80 feet wide and 220 feet deep, which is the average lot size of the existing properties zoned R1A in the Walton Way Millage neighborhood. Section 8-8B of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance allows for a 10-foot minimum side setback from any structure in an R1 zone for lots having a width over 70 feet. The purpose for reducing the side setbacks of the property from 10 feet to 6 feet is to allow for construction of a new 730 square foot carport attached to the house by a breezeway. The applicant states that shifting the driveway and adding the carport will allow drivers to safely turn around within the property and pull onto Millage Road facing oncoming traffic. The proposal is not consistent with the 2023 comprehensive plan. At the time of completion of this report, no inquiries were received by staff concerning this variance application. And that concludes staff's presentation at this time. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Rachel. Can we please have the representative for Southern State Builders? And when you get to the microphone, please state your name and your address, and if you have the authority to speak on behalf of Kenji Smalls.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Lewis. I'm the GC for this project. I'm with Southern State Builders. I do have the authority to, on behalf of the clients. I don't know if you need my personal address. I can give you the address of the property, 512 Millage Road, Augusta.
Okay, we have 510 Millage Road.
Oh, I'm sorry, it is 510. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Okay, could you please give us your business address?
Yes, it's 4787 Washington Road, Evans, Georgia.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep. We're proposing this for the clients to be able to turn around safely. If we shifted the carport closer to the house, when the clients do pull into the carport, they will not have enough room to back up because of the close proximity to the house and the actual property line. We tried to see if we could shorten the breezeway a little bit to give them a little bit more room. The way the existing structure is designed, there's some door and entryways in that area, which would not allow them to park there and still use those entry points. I believe we still meet all the requirements on the building code side, as far as with being proposing 6 feet instead of having it at 10.
Do we have any objectors in the audience? All right, can we please have staff recommendation?
Can staff ask a clarifying question of the applicant? Okay.
Sure.
The proposed carport, is it a pull-through?
It is not a pull-through, no, ma'am.
Because when you say they're going to turn around, you're just referring to the turn radius?
Yeah, so if they pull straight into the carport from the right side, the proposed side that's closest to the property line, the goal for them is to be able to back up from that spot they will back and turn towards the existing structure and then pull out. But if we move it closer, then that backup point is a lot smaller and they're not able to get a car completely turned around in that area.
Is it enclosed on 3 sides or all?
It's 2 storage areas on the back portion. So it's open in the middle on the back. There's a opening there, not for just walking through. And then it's open on the front side and both right and left side.
So the homeowner would be parking their vehicles under
that, yes.
In there, okay. All right, thank you. Planning and Development staff is recommending denial of the application as it does not meet the criteria for granting a variance as established by Section 33 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. Should the board move to approve the applicant's request, staff recommends the following conditions. Number 1, that the variance is approved to reduce the side setback from the required 10 feet to 6 feet to allow for the construction of a 730 square foot carport on the property. And number 2, that the applicant acknowledges that the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance outlines the following, that garages are accessory buildings and shall not be used and designed for residential purposes. They shall not contain sleeping or cooking facilities, and the accessory building may not be used to conduct home occupations or serve as home offices, and in no cases may an accessory building have a separate electrical service. And this concludes staff's recommendation.
Okay, thanks. Any comments or questions by board members? Do you agree, Board Member Burgum wants to know, do you agree with the staff's recommendation?
If we approve.
If we approve it.
If you approve,
Do you agree with staff's recommendation?
yes, if you approve the 6-foot variance,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Sorry.
I motion that we approve with the staff recommendations.
It's been motioned and second to approve this variance request with staff's recommendation. All in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, you have your approval. The letter will go in the mail to you on this week.
Awesome. Thank you,
All
guys.
right, thanks. Have a great one. Do we have any legal issues?
Samuel Miller, Law Department, nothing for the legal. Someone check. Is he all right?
All right, meeting's adjourned. But I think we better check with the hurricane did something with the